Just got back from Immokalee, Florida, where the coalition of Immokalee workers is about to begin a huge campaign against supermarkets like Trader Joe's, Stop and Shop, Giant, which is extremely important because if it succeeds, it will probably double the wages, which run between about $8,000 and $10,000 for agricultural workers in the tomato fields, who live in horrific conditions at best and at worst conditions that resemble slavery. But I've been following what's been happening here, and this is really where the hope of America lies. And all of the efforts of intimidation that we've seen by the police in New York, the disproportionate amount of force and the disproportionate numbers that have been deployed to contain the protests here, for me, illustrate that the real people who are scared are the cowardly. Of course, they're trying to make you scared and us scared, but I can tell you, having been a reporter for the New York Times, that on the inside, they're very, very frightened. They do not want movements like this to grow. And they understand on some level, whether it's subconscious or in other cases even overt, that the criminal class in this country has seized power. That those people in this plaza, those people carrying out these protests, in the true sort of definition of the political spectrum, are conservatives in this sense. They call for the rule of law. They call for the restoration of the rule of law. And what's happened is that the real radicals have seized power, and they are decimating all legal impediments to the creation of a neo-feudalistic corporate city, one in which there is a rapacious oligarchic class, a thin managerial elite, and 2/3 of this country live in conditions that increasingly push families to subsistence level. And one of the reasons that I went to Immokalee, and the reasons Immokalee is important, is because in this race to the bottom, Immokalee is the bottom. It's where they want the working and even the middle class to end up. And that is a place where they have no rights, where because of massive unemployment and work that is part-time, poorly paid work, they can reduce the working class to a status equivalent to serfdom, where there are no pensions, no health benefits. Collective bargaining in Florida is illegal, a legacy of Jim Crow. And Immokalee isn't just a horrific pocket of essentially third world abuse, but is a vision of what the corporate state wants to impose upon the rest of us. And what they want is for us to remain passive and to remain frightened. And as long as we remain passive and frightened, entranced with their electronic hallucinations, we are not a threat. The moment people come out and do this, the corporate state is terrified. And if you doubt me, look around you at the huge numbers of cops. And not only that, but the kind of brutality that the cops have visited on peaceful protesters. Fear is a potent force, and the security state and the corporate state has worked overtime to make us afraid. Because when you're afraid, you think with a different part of our brain. You become politically, emotionally, intellectually, and even physically disempowered. And we have to stop being afraid. And if we stop being afraid, then these nefarious forces that are destroying our ecosystem and destroying our country, their fragility will be exposed. So get out here. The only mechanism we have left for reform is civil disobedience. Any belief that the formal structures of power, including the Democratic Party, are going to ameliorate the injustices being visited upon us is self-delusion. You're doing it right now. This is it. Yeah, I mean, it's really about, physically throwing your body in front of the machine. I'm not a big fan. I mean, social networking is useful in terms of forms of communication, but I don't believe that it's useful in terms of forms of activism. Activism requires us to do what all of the great movements throughout history have done, and that is physically get out and obstruct the the forces of control. And that's it. This is really the only option we have left. And it's extremely important because the system doesn't work anymore, because there is no way for incremental or piecemeal reform to be carried out within the system. In essence, we've undergone a kind of corporate coup d'etat in slow motion. It's imperative that those of us who care about democracy and civil society engage in these acts of civil disobedience, which I have. And, you know, to be honest, going to jail is more time than I care to donate to the U.S. government. On the other hand, I have children, and I look at my children and I wonder what kind of a world we're going to leave them. My youngest son is 3 years old, and his favorite book is Out of the Blue, which are these huge pictures of narwhals and dolphins, and he will sit on the floor of his room and flip through these pages, and I look at him. When I see him do that, it breaks my heart, because I know that if there is not a radical change in human behavior, all of those great sea creatures will be dead within his lifetime. Corporate systems are, in theological terms, and I'm a seminary graduate and can't escape it, are systems of death. They turn everything into a commodity. Human beings become commodities. The natural world becomes a commodity that they exploit until exhaustion or collapse. In that sense, Karl Marx was right. It is a revolutionary force, and the revolution has happened. They've won. And to appeal to the systems of power, or the illusory systems of power that they place before us, is to essentially become complicitous in the radical reconfiguration that the corporate state intends. They know no limits. The only word corporations understand is more. They will push and push and push until human capital is destroyed, until the ecosystem itself is destroyed. And if we don't carry out acts of civil disobedience, then the rage that is being expressed by the working class, and it's a legitimate rage, will be channeled by proto-fascist movements like the Tea Party, militia, and other groups. And these are groups that celebrate violence, they celebrate the gun culture, they are racist towards Muslims, undocumented workers, homosexuals, intellectuals, and that's really the choice before us. Either those of us who care about an egalitarian, open society get out into the streets, or we cede power to movements that will seek to snuff out what is left of our anemic democracy. Yeats got it. I mean, we live in a moment when the best lack all conviction and the worst are full of passionate intensity. And the reason that what's happening today is so vital and so important and even monumental is that, to my mind, everyone in this park are the best.